welcome to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast with me, Snora Hager. It's my privilege to welcome you to Series 4 of the podcast. And we've got an exciting series of conversations lined up for you. And I want to start today's conversation by sort of setting the theme and the background as to where we're going. Before this podcast in Series 3, I think it was number 11, I had a conversation with John Wyatt on what it means to grow old gracefully, and that's at drsnell.com/growingoldgracefully. And that was a few years ago, and we jokingly titled it, A 56-year-old man and a 59-year-old man discuss what it means to grow old gracefully. We said 56-year young and 59-year-old young men describe what it means to grow old gracefully. And that got me thinking, because so often as we men and women grow older, it's very easy to become very jaded, very cynical, very negative. And our media and our news is full of stories of leaders who have done poorly in life, particularly in the second half of life. So I really want to encourage us to think positively about that. And today's the opening podcast. And I'm excited to say that for this opening conversation, I've got my daughter Nisha here with us. Nisha, it's great to have you.
Hi, great to be here. What an honour.
It's a privilege to have you here. And one of the reasons I've got you on here today, and thank you for coming, is to talk about this whole issue about growing old gracefully, because I'm getting older, Nisha. In fact, only a couple of weeks ago, I turned 60. Now, it might be hard to believe, but that little baby is about...
With the eyeliner.
With the eyeliner, yeah. Indian surma, yeah, eyeliner. That was me about, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. And then there's me with my mum and dad and my grandmother getting ready to... Bibiji, that's right, yeah. We called it Bibiji. Do you remember it? I think she...
Yeah. I remember sitting in Vineet Uncle's... No, Vijay Chatter's house.
In Delhi,
her.
In New Delhi with her, yeah. She passed away in 2009. But that is actually taken in 1968, April 1968. We're getting ready to leave Delhi, to come to England. And then we're going to whiz ahead to just a couple of weeks ago. That's me with your lovely mother, my lovely wife, Sally, and with my lovely dad, who's 91, who lives with us now. So
yeah, that was a fun evening. We had like home cooked food. I made aloo gobi.
Right, you did, didn't you?
And then what was our evening activity, Dad? What did we do?
Well, yes, that we decided that we would all share what was a meaningful song to us, and we would explain why it was meaningful or fun, and then we played it and we did a bit of dance.
You know what would be a good test, if you can remember any of your children's songs that they shared?
I remember Mum's song was from Burfeed. She did that one from Burfeed.
What about your children? What are their songs?
Now that is a really hard question. I'm really sorry about this. I cannot remember
any of them.
I can't.
That wasn't part of the prep that you did.
No, I can't remember. I actually can't remember.
Shame. No one will ever know. That's the real shame.
Well, now it's being broadcast. They're all going to find out. But anyway, well, you're welcome to tell me again. But we can do that another time. Okay. So, reflections on turning 60 and all that's happened. Well, goodness, since being a baby. There's a lot of stuff's happening. And I did a podcast on turning 50, which I'll put up at drsnell.com/turning50 with Andrew Horton that I did 10 years.
So you started this podcast 10 years ago?
No, it's longer than that, actually.
Oh, wow.
It was probably about 20...
It's taken you this long to invite me.
It has taken a long time. I'm sorry.
Tragic.
I'm sorry, Nisha. It has taken this long to get to invite you. But anyway, we're making up for that.
Yeah.
But on turning 50, Andrew Horton interviewed me for that. And we looked at a series of reflections on that. And as I said, that will be on the website at drsnell.com/turning50. But we're going to turn to think about turning 60. Because between 50 and 60, this book came out, didn't it? It came out in...
Should we hold it nicely now?
Yeah, everybody can see.
Yeah.
Dancing with Wisdom, A Sacred Quest.
Sorry for not watching this. You can't see us holding yellow books.
Okay. Well, A Sacred Quest to restore meaning, purpose and fun to your life and work. And what I talk about in that book is the 4 themes of wisdom, which are... And I think if you... page 159, I think it is.
Okay, do you want me to read it out?
Well, I think, why not? Why not read it out? Yeah.
The 4 vital questions are: number 1, being. If I'm going to be a person I can live with, what kind of person will that be?
Yeah.
Number 2, relating. How do I relate to others? My family, my friends, my work colleagues, those who come into my social orbit and the wider global village.
Yeah, because we're connected so much, aren't we? Through WhatsApp and through Zoom and FaceTime. We're connected to people all over the world.
Where do I find the healthy balance between sober seriousness and the fun in life?
Yeah, that's what, you often criticise me about. You say I'm too serious, don't you? Yeah, but anyway.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And number 3, doing. If I'm to do something meaningful with my life, what kind of work should I do?
Yeah.
And lastly, leaving. Finally, when life comes to an end, what do I want my legacy to be?
Yeah, big serious questions, big questions there.
Yeah.
And although I'm turning 60 now, I've got what's the phrase? I've got less in front of me than I have behind me, as it were. So those are the 4 big questions of wisdom. And I know you've got some questions that you've thought for me as well, and we're going to try and weave that in. And so I prepared some slides, I prepared some stuff, and we're just going to see how it goes, really.
Apologies if it's a bit cringe, because it's my first time.
That's okay. Thanks. We're all very forgiving. The first question is around being. Who I'm becoming is the most important thing about me. You know, we are human beings, we're not human doings. Now, you had a question for me, didn't you, as well, about leadership?
Oh yes, cue question.
Cue question.
What's leadership? Is it like mainly about achievement, what you do?
Yeah.
That's what I mean about the cringe. It's so like queued up. I love it. It's great. Keep going.
Okay,
we'll
keep going. So I wanted to weave that in because being comes before doing. When we think about leadership, we think about somebody who's out there, you know, strong and powerful. But what I want to contend is, you know, leadership. You know,
give like a person that you'd see. If I said leader, what would you say? Leader.
Oh my goodness.
Go.
Oh good. Yeah, I mean, you think of something like, I know, Nelson Mandela, somebody like Gandhi, somebody like Martin Luther King, and then you've got the bad leaders. You know, you've got Putin, you've got Hitler, you've got all sorts of people who are doing bad things, basically. But leadership fundamentally is about the best definition I like is one by John Maxwell, which is about influence. And what's helpful about that is that we all influence each other. I influence by what I say, I influence by what I don't say. And all of us are influencing somebody in our world. You know, it doesn't happen on a grand scale. And the other important thing to say about leadership as well is that it's, how can I put it? It's much more than about achievement. It includes achievement. So it's something about gathering people in a common cause and giving them a vision for something and helping them to reach it. But actually, the hardest person to lead is ultimately yourself. Again, a quote from John Maxwell that often makes me smile, really, is he says, if I could kick the person who's caused the most problems in my life, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. By which he means, you're supposed to laugh at that point, Nisha, but don't worry, it's okay. By which he means, really, that self-leadership is the hardest taskmaster, because, you know, you can lead other people, and you can lead people by paying them money or by being very, very sort of demanding, and you can get them to do something because you're paying them or because they'll get in trouble if they don't do something. But to get somebody to do something because they genuinely want to, that's a much higher form of leadership. And to do that, you have to be able to lead yourself. But this goes back to our theme about being, because who I'm becoming is the most important thing about me. And as I reflect on turning 60, I just want to share this quote from C.S. Lewis, a dead white man. And there's a lot of people feel
he's so underquoted in the Christian world.
I know he's quoted a lot in the, but he has one of the reasons is because he has lots of, I think, very important things to say. And this quote I came across actually last year when I turned 59, and it sort of resonated with me. He says, Christianity asserts that every individual human being is going to live forever. Now, obviously, that's what our secular world would say, that you live and then you die and then you just stop existing. You know, you can sort of switch yourself off. But no, every religious tradition, and Christianity as well, says that every individual being is going to live forever. So when I die, I don't just switch myself off like I switch off the TV or the radio or the internet. Because even if I switch off the TV, radio and the internet, the programs are still running. And so death is not the end. And he says, well, either that's true or false. Either I die and I stop existing, or there's a part of me that carries on. Now, there are many good things which would not be worth bothering about if I was only going to live 70 years and then, as it were, switch off, but which I'd better bother about very seriously if I'm going to live forever. the question is, what should I be worried about? And he says, perhaps my bad temper or my jealousy are gradually getting worse, so gradually that the increase in 70 years will not be very noticeable. But it might be an absolute hell in a million years. In fact, if Christianity is true, hell is the precisely correct technical term for what it would be.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't it really? Okay.
No, not really.
What he's saying is, if this is about who I'm becoming is really important. Now, I don't know if you remember this, Nisha, but I can't remember how long, it was a long time ago. But when we went on holiday as a family, we had this game where we all gave each other nicknames. And I remember the nickname that I got because it mortified me. Do you remember the nickname?
Yeah, I do.
Well, go on. What was it?
It was Puddleglum.
It was Puddleglum, and I was really upset that my children regard me as Puddleglum. Now, if you don't know, Puddleglum is a character in Narnia, and the thing about him is that he's
from what book?
That's a great question.
Yeah, great question. See,
I
do you
can't
even
remember.
know your C.S. Lewis?
It's C.S. Lewis. I can't remember which book it is in. I can't remember. Sorry.
The Silver Chair.
The Silver Chair. Thank you for that reminder. Now, Puddleglum is a very dour character, and he's typically your yes but person. So whenever you say anything positive, he'll say something negative. He's always looking on the negative side of things. And what I realised was, which was so, as it were, a wake-up call for me, is that I'm becoming, actually I was relatively young then, I'm becoming a grumpy young man. I don't like the fact that my children, basically when they see me, they see somebody who's becoming very negative and very sort of cynical, really. And I've shared this on other podcasts and in my writing as well. I've struggled with depression and negative thinking a lot in my life, and it's been an ongoing struggle for me. And I realised that actually I wasn't, on one level I was dealing with it, but on another level, when you're at home with family, then family see you as you really are. You can present one image to the public and you can be somebody. And I thought, this is what's going on. And so I did a lot of study of positive psychology and of scripture, and I realised that although pessimists may be realistic, optimists live longer and have happier lives. And ultimately, in the Bible, we should be the most positive people in the world, because as what's his name, Billy Graham says, I've read the last page of the Bible and it turns out all right in the end. And so we live in a world that's got a lot of negative things happening, and it's very easy to become very cynical and jaded by it. But actually, if Christ is on the throne, if Jesus has risen from the dead, if he is the one who is in charge of every atom and molecule in the universe, then there's a lot to be thankful for. And so who I'm becoming becomes really important. So what are you sort of saying there? If you think of a plant or something that's growing or maturing or developing, my jealousy or my bad temper, left unchecked at my death, will continue to grow and nurture. I think that's what he's saying there. And that's really quite sobering, really. Who I'm becoming is the most important thing about me. Do you want to make a comment on that, or do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think being realistic about what's difficult and being honest about what's hard isn't maybe I don't know, that's not wrong, and it's not
it's not wrong. No, it's not. No.
But it's
But you've got to have a certain amount of joy and centeredness within you to deal with the negativity out there.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then you're going to run away from it, I think, and you're not going to want to face it. So I think that's sort of something to be said about that. And so
and there's real hope in who you're becoming.
Yes.
I guess.
And also as Christian, if you think about the word Christian means little Christ, so that's about we are seeking to become little Christs, as it were, to grow in Christ-like character. That is the most, and that was something that really, when I came to faith in Christ 40 years ago, somebody said to me, actually, a guy called Clive Thorne, who discipled me, I was saying to him, what is the essence of Christianity? And he said, the essence of Christianity is growing in love for God and love for other people. If you're not able to be a person of love, then it's all a waste of time, really.
So I go on to my next question.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Who is an underrated leader in your life who you wouldn't have expected the last decade to have made such an impact on you?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Flawed.
Well, okay, so what did you say?
Nothing.
Well, actually, I would have to say that, I wouldn't have thought of it in a force, but I would say actually it's my dad. He's the underrated leader in my life.
Aww. shout out
Your
to them.
your granddad, my
Yeah.
dad. And the reason why I say that is, I think in terms of, I mean, 4 words that I would use for that. One would be his courage, in a sense. So he lost his dad when he was 21. And very quickly he had younger siblings, younger brothers and sisters. And very quickly at the age of 21, and in India, had to take responsibility for the family. And that was a big reason why, in a sense, we chose to come to this country, because he was sending money back to family there. And so taking that responsibility, so the courage to do that. Then also, I think, in terms of sacrifice as well, because I knew him and Mum especially, found it really hard to live in this country. Again, it's hard to imagine a time without the internet. Hard to imagine, when you would write letters, it would take a week for the letter to get to India, and if the person replied immediately, take a week to come back, and you had no contact with India at all. And I know that she found it hard, and it was tough, but they chose to stay. And I remember I was about 7 or 8 years old, and maybe this explains why I can be a bit too intense and serious at times. I remember my mum sat me down and she said, I think my brother must have been about 1 or 2. She said, your dad and I, because they only came for 2 years when they came in '68, and then that became 3 years, and it became 4 years, and then my brother was born. And she sat me down and she said, your dad and I have talked to, and we decided that we're not going to go back to India. We're going to stay in this country for the sake of you and your brother, to have opportunities that we could never have had. So don't mess your life up. I know, that was tough. So no pressure for an 8-year-old. But so I knew there was that. So for him as well, the sacrifice. And the thing about Dad as well was that I saw he made intentional choices to be with us as a family. And he had opportunities to work in other places and go, but he actually chose for the sake of his family. So that's I sort of admire about him. The other thing about him as well, so courage, sacrifice and availability. So when I he currently lives with us now. Mum passed away 3 years ago in 2022. But when he was away, and when I was living away, and I would ring him up, make telephone calls, I'd say to him, Dad, what are you doing? And it became a running joke between us. He would say, I'm waiting for your phone call. And what I really sort of admire about him is his ability to always make himself available. He'd stop whatever he's doing to make and just be there for you. And I think really that is really important, because we live in an age where people are all busy doing their own thing, and maybe rightly so as well. But to make the importance of being there, that's what I've really admired in him. And then the other thing I'd say is patience and perseverance, because I caused him a lot of headache in his life. There are many things we disagree on, particularly around faith matters and some of the choices I made in my life. But what I've known above all is that he loves me and he's got my back the whole way. And that's precious and that's priceless. So
can you imagine if we then put in the Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum soundtrack at this point?
Oh yeah, the Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum.
It's all about loving.
It's all about loving your parents.
Sorry, Bollywood reference.
That's a Bollywood reference. If you don't know Bollywood, we won't go down that road. Go for it, Nisha. Go for it.
Okay. So you've entered 60.
I've entered 60. Yes.
Plenty of time to reflect.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Because you're very reflective.
I'm a very reflective person.
What's inspiring you at this moment as you enter 60? Not reflecting back, but sort of
what's inspiring me is
making you go forward.
Is actually that it's a phrase that I've used a lot. Is that in Christ our bad things can turn out. I've said this, I think, even at your dedication 27 years ago.
Oh gosh.
So it's a long time back. Is that in Christ our bad things can turn out for good, our good things can never be lost, and the best is yet to come. And that's actually I need to be looking forward, not behind. My best days are always ahead of me, and if I'm going to have an eternal perspective, what Christ has for me and what the future holds. It doesn't mean that there won't be disappointment and sorrows and hardships, but that somehow or other God is going to use whatever is happening for his better purposes, and ultimately in the new creation the best is yet to come. That inspires me.
Should we then bring that sort of out to how it impacts your relating now, sort of how you look ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Impacts how you lead now.
Yeah,
maybe,
I think that's great. So
in your
what it means
relationships.
for me, it takes the pressure off, because now that I'm 60, and I've got the privilege in a sense. I work, I do some private work as a psychiatrist and as a coach. But what I do is the way I put it is that I fit my work around my life rather than my life around my work. So I'm able to control my diary much more than I ever could when I was younger.
Yeah, our household, at the moment, I'm unemployed. Monday rolls around and Priya, my younger sister, she has to go to work. But me, mum and dad and Dada G are just floating around.
Floating around, that's right. She's the only... But I do work as well.
You do, sorry.
Yeah.
I work too, actually.
Yeah, well, actually, and that's...
Anyway, but let's be real. It looks quite...
Funny?
I don't know, not funny.
You got strange, yeah.
Monday mornings are quite chill.
It can be quite, but it's a privilege.
Sorry, I don't know what my point is.
But it is a privilege.
Yeah.
And I think, and it broadens definition, because I think work is changing anything from how it is at the moment. So anything you want to change is that you can define as work. So I've got a very broad definition of work, but what it means is, I think, that you can look at life. So your question was.
What's my question?
Yeah, what was the question? It was, how does that actually translate into data?
Yeah, into leading.
Yeah, because what it means
that
I've got nothing to prove to anybody else, and ultimately, I'm not nothing to prove. Ultimately, as best as I can, what does it mean to seek what God is calling me to do in terms of relationships? So I know the three things that I do best are reading, reflecting, and relating. 3 R's. Okay, I enjoy reading and learning. When I say reading, I mean learning. In all its context.
You're a nerd.
I'm a nerd, yes I am, yeah. Reflecting on the things that I'm learning, and then using those in relationships. And that's why I love being a coach and a psychiatrist, because it's helping, working with people in transformative conversations, helping them to have aha moments, helping them to come...
Aha moments.
Yeah. Eureka moments, stepping out of things as well, like that. So that's inspiring me. And the other thing that's inspiring me as well is I'd listened to my Turning 50 podcast the other day, and I talked about the brain being the most complex object in the universe. And what I realised 10 years, yes, the brain is the most complex object in the universe, but actually we are embodied. So I'm not just a brain on legs. What I've had to learn in the last few years is that I actually have a body. And I spent so much time in my head worrying or overanalyzing or overthinking, but I'm actually connected to my body. And I had very bad sciatica last year, which ended up going briefly into hospital to get some morphine to deal with the pain. And so I've had to make some radical changes and adjustments on regular exercise. But what's been great about that is that I'm now connected to my body. And I've just seen how good that is for my own mental health and for how, Scripture talks about a bodily resurrection and the fact that we are body, mind and spirit. And I've begun to appreciate the fact that I'm not just a brain on legs, as it were, but I have a body that is gifted to me by God. And by God's, again, can't guarantee it, but at the age of 60, it's healthy as far as I can tell, and that's by God's grace. And so let me use that for Him. What's that phrase? Don't resent growing old, because it's a privilege denied to many people. So thankful for that.
I feel like we've completely gone off.
No, we
somewhere.
haven't.
What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about. You asked me the question about what my reflections and turning 60 and what I'm learning like that. Yeah. And I think the other big thing, and I just want to use this slide here.
Nice. Get a quote in.
Get a quote in. Yes, that's right. Is again another dead white man. Is this concept of gratitude? He says the chief idea of my life is the idea of taking things with gratitude and not for granted. And I told you about the Puddleglum me. Or the part of me that can be very cynical and very negative, basically is, I think, very deep rooted. I think it's in our psyche. It goes all the way back to the garden, where we look at all the good things that God has given us, and we say, "Is this all you have for me?" When actually we're called to live with gratitude and wonder. And I just love this. Chesterton's got some great quotes. He says, "I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and that gratitude is happiness doubled by wonder."
That's nice.
And I think that's one of the big challenges, of growing older, is you've seen a lot of negative things. You've had some really tragic stories. You had your experience of betrayals and hurts and relationship problems with people. And it's very easy to get cynical. It's very easy to get jaded. It's very easy to become complaining and negative. But if somehow to keep the joy and wonder of our existence, that, you know, like a little child, you know, the joy of being alive, I don't want to lose that. And I want that to grow deeper and stronger, because that's what God calls us to.
Yeah. Sounds nice, but I feel like you'll have to use the whole podcast series to unpack that more.
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked that question, because what we've got lined up a number of different conversations with people who are in the second half of life, who are doing exactly that. So we're going to have some interviews with Terry Virgo, who is 85. We're going to call it Not Your Average Great-Grandfather. And he's done some amazing things in his life. But at 85, when I went to interview him, I think we got about 6 podcasts with him. And I got there, I think, 9:15, and I left at 5:30 after doing the 6 podcasts. And he was still full of energy. And it was just inspiring. And we got interviews with Ken Wright.
I don't think I could chat that much.
No, you couldn't chat that much. No. But we've got an interview with Ken Wright as well, who's a part of our church, who was CEO of Royal Mail, and then retired from that and then reinvented himself. Because I think that's the key thing, because as we get older, it's finding one's identity. Remember the being part? Who am I? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not, you know, it's very easy to define ourselves by what we do rather than defining ourselves that I'm a beloved child of God. So
and if you were, say, not in the later years of your life, why would I want to listen to your podcast?
That's a good question. Well, my response to that would be to say there are 2 ways to learn. You can learn from your own mistakes, or you can learn from mistakes of other people. And it's always less painful to learn from the mistakes of other people. You know, somebody who's gone ahead of you, and who can warn you of the potholes on the way, using a driving analogy. And so you need to watch out for, at this point in your life, where the crossroads come, you know, take this road rather than that road, take the road less travelled, as Robert Frost would say, and that will make all the difference. It might save you some heartache in the future. So part of that, I think, you know, and there's intergenerational learning the older generation learning from the younger, and the younger generation learning from the older.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
You like that bit, don't you? But there is something for us oldies as well, is that we can do some time travel, real time travel, because I remember when I was young, and I remember some of the things I did, and I can hopefully try and warn you of things to watch out for. And you can give me perspectives, because, you know, you're living in a completely different world to the world that I live in, that I was brought up in. Mm-hmm. And so there's some real richness there. But to do that from a place of gratitude. I just wanted to this was another thing that really struck me as well, because gratitude is a muscle to develop. Like anything.
We stayed in a cottage called Gratitude last week.
Oh, we did. You're right.
Wow.
We were in Keswick, weren't we? That's
so
absolutely
profound.
That's profound. I forgot about that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I love this, because he says, for years I struggled with my gratitude practice. What am I grateful for? Always seemed a tough question to answer. And I just love this, he said. So 3 questions. What do I have today that my 10-year-old self would love to have? And right away I'm overwhelmed, because if my 10-year-old self could see how I'm living today, their mind would be blown, the things that you could do. Actually, and I did remember this, because I remember when I was about 4 or 5, I remember when I lived with it was just me and my parents, and we didn't have a bath in our house, and so we had to go to the swing baths, and my mum would give me a bath, and then she would have a bath herself, and my dad would have a shower, and then I would have to be sitting outside with this pool where the kids would be playing. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I wish I could swim. I wish I could learn how to swim. Now, I'm a terrible swimmer. And when I was 12, I passed my confidence test, which means you could only swim a length. And that was the last swimming lesson I ever had. And I remember that prayer. I think it was a sort of semi-formulated prayer at the age of 4 or 5. I would just love to be able to swim. It was amazing, because about 30, 40 years later, when I was working as a psychiatrist, there was a club which had a swimming pool, an indoor and outdoor pool, very near where I worked, and I was able to go swimming quite often in the week, because it was just so close to work. And I remember thinking, amazing, God has answered my prayer. It took a long time, you know, that prayer of a little child at that stage. And so that's, that was wonderful. And then what do I have today that my 85-year-old self would love to have? Now, that's what, I'm 60, that's 25 years of future, if I have that long. And there are things I'm taking for granted that I can do. Same idea here, but in reverse. Think all the things you have right now that you're going to lose over time. Write them down and start to cherish them. The relationships, you're living with us at the moment. You may not, carry on living with us. So all these kind of privileges. And then the other big one is health, because, as I said, growing old is a privilege denied to many people. What do I have today that my current self would, when sick or injured, would beg to have? So when I've had real pain with my sciatica and been limping around, and by God's grace, it's by and large gone, I think, wow, thank you, God, for health. And that's probably the other biggest thing as you get older. When you're younger, you take health for granted. You think you're invincible, you think you'll just chug along. But as you get older, you begin to realize that things are creaking and things are not really what they're not as strong as they once were. And all sorts of illnesses and things that happen. Yeah. There we are, there's some thoughts there. What were your reflections and thoughts, Nisha?
On what bit?
On anything.
On anything?
Yeah.
Go back to the other thing.
Sorry, on the gratitude bit you're talking about?
I don't really have any.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I've run out of all my questions as well.
You've run out of your questions?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe I'll have to get another interviewer next time.
Well, let me just say, so remember from the book, we're talking about being and relating. And am I able to love others more deeply, even those people I don't like or regard as enemies? I think that's a big, big challenge, really, because to love deeply is a big, big challenge for all of us. It's easy to talk about, as it were, loving people in general, but then you're living at home with us, and it's easy to get irritated with your mum and dad, and it's easy for your mum and dad to get irritated with you. So learning that's the crucible.
Bring negativity.
Oh no, bring negativity.
It's a great week.
It's the crucible, isn't it, like that? But again, another Lewis quote. He says, "There are no ordinary people." What do you want to read it out? Why don't you read it out? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. There are no ordinary people. You've never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendours. This does not mean that we are to be perpetually solemn. We must play, but our merriment must be of that kind, and it is in fact the merriest kind, which exists between people who have from the outset taken each other seriously. No flippancy, no superiority, no presumption.
Yeah. And so I think, does anything resonate with you on that? Or what are your thoughts on that particular quote?
It's a very you quote.
It's a very me quote, but
yeah.
it's a C.S. Lewis quote, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think what I like about it is he talks about either immortal horrors or everlasting splendours, his phrase there. And it's the sacredness of human relationships, and the fact that we're going back to leadership, influence each other. And how can we influence each other for the good to go in a positive direction rather than down a negative spiral? And we have relationship crises in our culture and our society. If you look at family breakdown, if you look at conflict in the world, if we really believed that human beings are the ones who live forever and that what we do has eternal consequences, we would live in a very different way.
It's a good segue to what you're working on at the moment.
Okay, so that, yeah, well that's
interviewing skills.
Thank you. Living in the light of eternity is the
new
big
book.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take an eternity to get it out.
Okay, fine.
But the big challenge, what I realise is that I have to embody it myself rather than just write it, and I want it to come out of the overflow. But I think what I've sort of realised on that point, and it's a good question really, is that if we were to really live in the life of eternity, that would change so much of what we do. People are struggling so much because the secular world conditions us to think that this life is all there is, so that when I die, I stop existing and then just switch off. Now, if that's the case, then basically I've got to cram everything into this life, and it puts so much pressure. I mean, you have books like 100 Things to Do Before You Die, which I'm not saying, there are things to do, things to enjoy, but good things can become God things. They can become idols. We start to expect too much of them. That's the danger. And so I'm really thinking of working on that project. If you know that the best is yet to come, and you know that you have a loving Heavenly Father who has given himself for you and who is reigning in eternity and has proven that by raising Jesus from the dead, and that he is our elder brother who goes ahead of us, and that God accepts us not because of what we do, but because of our trust in faith in him, then it takes the pressure off. So that's why I think that's really powerful.
How much, I think, attention span is probably going to falter soon.
Yes.
So do you want to give a big rounding off?
Yes. So being, relating, doing, what am I called to do that no one else...
You've kind of just given us a bit of the last one. So why don't you end in the present?
Yeah. Well, I want to end with what am I called to do. Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And that very much is what I love to do in terms of my work, is helping people reconnect with who they actually are. There's a verse in Ephesians that says that we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that he's prepared in advance for us to do. And the workmanship is the word poema, which is where we get poem, or his masterpiece. And so God is working on us. He's creating something that's going to live for eternity. And as I grow into the identity of who he's called me in Christ, then I become more and more alive. And again, what awaits us is life. Jesus said, I've come that they may have life and have it all in all its fullness. And I think there's something exciting about that. And I think Howard Thurman is onto something about this, really, is that finding what it is that actually makes you come alive and go and do that. And then you never have to work again because you're doing what comes alive.
But you never have to work again. Big claim. Okay. Interesting.
But to discern that takes reflection. And
it's another quote.
I know. When a great moment knocks on the door of your life, it is often no louder than the beating of your heart, and it's very easy to miss it. And so we live in a world with a lot of distraction, with a lot of noise, with a lot of things coming at us from all sorts of directions. And so you need to have that centeredness. You need the still small voice of God saying, this is the path, walk in it, as opposed to being distracted by whatever is latest and loudest, or whatever the media or the culture is saying to you. Because I can think back in my own life that certain choices and decisions that I made actually had a huge impact. I remember, actually, this is interesting, actually, you were sitting here. So when I was this is going back a while, when I turned 30, I was offered what I thought was my dream job. I think you're about, you were born in 98, weren't you? So yeah, I was about 2 years old. And I was working up the career ladder as a psychiatrist. And then I went for an interview at a pharmaceutical company. And I was going to replace this particular doctor. The person I was going to replace, he interviewed me. And he basically offered me the job. And he said, you do realise, though, that there's a lot of travel with this job. And then I remember he told me, he said that with this job, he says, sometimes I go on a trip to Southeast Asia and I come back with one suitcase and I give my wife a suitcase of dirty clothes and she gives me another suitcase of clean clothes, and then I'm off again the next morning. And I thought, this could have been my dream job, but I've just had my second child. I can't say yes. I have to say no. Now, if I hadn't, that was a pivotal moment in my life to make a decision. I think, Mum, I don't know whether she supported it or not. Actually, I didn't fully discuss it with her, but I knew in my own heart that I wasn't going to take it because it was too big a step. But if you're, and this is obviously personal to each person in their own context, but you need to know what makes you most alive and what is that still small voice within you, the voice of God saying that you should do. So on that, there's I just want to close with just with a final thing really. Leaving. Am I prepared to surrender it all, believing that the best is yet to come? Because I know I said to you about the future in terms of believing that. And Dallas Willard, who your brother introduced me to on a new level, Rohan, he says, the most important thing in your life is not what you do, it's who you become. That's what you will take into eternity. And then he says, you are an unceasing spiritual being with an eternal destiny in God's great universe. So if you like, this life is the warm-up for the life to come. And, if you think about, little children, they play doctors and nurses, they play with girls, like you play with your dollies, doing things, imagining what you might be. I remember when you were about 8 or 9, you said you wanted to be a dentist on Mondays, a ballerina on Tuesdays. I can't remember the other things. You had
ironing, I think.
Yeah, you're going to look after your kids on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that. Well, that was the play thing. Well, actually, this life is actually, in many ways, a preparation, because we will have work to do in the new creation. And I would round off with this other fantastic quote, which has inspired me a lot. He says, from Dallas, he says, your eternal destiny is not cosmic retirement. There's only so many so much golf or so many golf you can play or so many beaches you can go to. It's not cosmic retirement on a cruise. It's to be part of a tremendously creative project under unimaginably splendid leadership on an inconceivably vast scale with ever-increasing cycles of fruitfulness and enjoyment. That is the prophetic vision which eye has not seen and ear has not heard. This whole point is the best is yet to come. And so thank you, Nisha, for our conversation that we've had together and for launching us together on this. Any comments you want to make at the end?
Thanks for listening. You've been listening to drnisharaheta.com.
Dr. Nisha Raheta?
Yeah, this is the moment where I take the podcast.
You want to take
you're going to stop here.
Okay.
I'm going to do the rest of the series.
Well, we've got the others. We've got a few more lined up as well. We've got a few more lined up.
So this is the end of Nisha's podcast career.
Well, have you been traumatised with it? Have you not been
slightly
traumatised by it?
But I'll be okay.
You'll be okay. That's good to hear.
I'll learn.
But we've got some great conversations lined up about people who are living with that excitement in the future as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for listening to us both.
Yeah, thanks guys.
And it's goodbye for now.
Bye.